Welcome to the Reality After Show covering The Challenge, Season 39, Battle for a New Champion, Episode 13, El Saboteur. I am your host, Alex Trias, always joined by my ride or die that always is on top of his communication with me. It's Dan Montchal. Dan, how you doing?
I'm doing good, and I think it's we've reached that time where I need to issue a public apology. The first, say, 4 or 5 episodes of the season, I was very critical of Kyland. I was saying that he was so game oriented, focused that we weren't really seeing anything outside of that. Like even his time with Melissa it was bland. It wasn't all that exciting. And I was thinking, I don't know. But from what we've seen from this episode, I do owe Kylan an apology because I think he is the breakout character of the season. He's been bringing it every episode. He's not afraid to go against the grain. And I'm really rooting for him because to me, what I want, everyone wants the entertainment going into the season. They want the entertainment, they want the drama, the storylines, which I want that too. But one of the things that I'm always rooting for is I want like that stellar season. And I don't think we've had that's as far as cast members anyway. I don't think a certain cast member on the show has had a stellar season in 4-5 seasons where it's really been a standout. And I want that for Kyland. So going through the rest of the season, I will be rooting hard for Kyland and Raven because I think those two getting a win this season would be incredible. Will it happen? Who knows? But for me, I felt like I just needed to start out with a public apology. And you were right, Alex.
I'll always take that because I know me and I love being right. I'm not always right, so I will take it when I get it. And Kylan's definitely was someone that was like, I wasn't sure how he would do on this style season, not on a CBS version of the show. Because I know fandom was all like, oh, boo, Kylan, we don't like him because of whatever from Big Brother. I don't care. I found him always to be someone who was very fascinating as a player and also as a person. And to see him I'll be critical of him when he's not playing well, like we were in the beginning of the season. But I love how he's playing in the position that he is playing in. Like he doesn't care that he is not in the numbers. He doesn't care that he's an underdog. He's still going to do what he believes he needs to do for his game, and he isn't going to step down to anybody. Nobody's going to scare him into doing a move that he doesn't want to do ultimately, and what he thinks is smartest. And we see people today in the episode get, in their words, they were nothing wrong, doesn't bother them at all, but he's pressing them just because he's giving them the ounce of adversity.
I think another thing that really is to his credit is he's the adversary to this big, alliance. But what you see is no one's really attacking him personally. You see that a lot of people that played the season with him like him. It's not someone like Turbo from last season where everyone was just like, no, we couldn't stand him in the house. And that had nothing to do with how he was playing the game. It was more of who he was as a person at that particular time, where it seems like there's no one that has a personal issue with Kyland. They just realize the threat that he's posing. He is the way he's going about grabbing numbers. He isn't there just complaining, being like, oh, you guys are pussies for not shaking it up, but then not actually coming up with an idea of how to counteract that. He's going about playing this game the perfect way from this underdog solution or stance that he's in. I don't know if he'll be able to keep doing that, but so far he's doing everything right.
Yeah, like obviously not right in the sense of having power and influence and like being able to shake it up, but like he's making his stance known. Like he's not just gonna follow along the chain, and that's the bigger issue for them. Like they were like Jay used the word shifty, and I hate using the word shifty for players just because like you're against them now. It's like, oh, he's too shifty for us. The real issue is that he's not gonna be a mindless follower. Like Kyland, that's just not who Kyland is. He is not going to just ride the wave of someone else's idea, because this is a selfish game at the end of the day. He wants to win this money, and y'all haven't protected him. So why should he show any type of loyalty or faith to them? Like something for Colleen to take notes on, because man, she's like she's still good TV to me. I think you keep bringing her back because she's going to have issues with like every single girl, every single season moving forward. But that's where we stand. That's where we stand at beginning of this episode and the end of this episode. So Jay, this is also a Jay episode.
Not a good one.
And I feel this episode in particular really highlights how much other people are carrying Jay's game outside of Jay's initial strength, which was coming in with a lot of friends. Like,
what has been his game outside of coming in with a lot of friends?
Him believing that whatever his word is the decree. Like, because we see him throughout this episode, like with Nervous, he's like, I'll make sure that you're never even a consideration. If anyone even brings you up, I'll say a different name and they will all go with it because that's what I'm saying. Where really we're being highlighted this season, it's what Montchal is saying to other people. It's what other people within the Alliance are doing work on. Like Corey pulling Colleen back in by like pulling on the like, well, who do you like more? Like, it's not about who's better for your game more so than like, who do you enjoy more? You enjoy me, you enjoy Berna, so why would you go against us? Like, it makes more sense for you to still stay with us, even if you're on the bottom. Like, Jay just tells her in the episode, no, I can't protect you, even if you vote with us. But like other people do work that now Colleen like goes back into her ways of, well, I'll just keep hiding in the majority then.
This episode highlights why Jay will never do this well on a season again. You see it all throughout this episode specifically of it's just he's not, I don't want to say he's not built for it, but the way he's going about the game, at least in his current mindset, it's not set up for him to do well in any season outside of this. Like, I think he said it at the end of last episode. Maybe it was the beginning of this one. I forget which one, where he's saying, these were upcomers, it's out with the old, in with the new. And just like, that's not the case, Jay, especially when you throw in there that Jay is 34. He is not the new. Like, he is not going to be the next generation of the show. He's a year older than Jordan.
I was about to say that was the thing I found out today that I was shocked by. Like, I was shocked that he's older than Jordan. But he's been like on this train since the beginning of the season, since the first toast and all that. And like, I get it. I get that mentality. And part of this, I think, is just from the seasons that he was thrown into. He's going about it the way that he feels the big dogs went against him. And where I wish he would show that like extra layer is him understanding the position that Kyland and Horacio are in. Like, not saying not still target them, but it's like he's completely oblivious or through the edit, I want to be clear, of the position that Kyland and Horacio find themselves in is the same position that he's been in every single season, and why Jay hasn't made it past the halfway point on a season that has people that have played more than 3 seasons ever on a cast. Like, and you go with what happens later in the episode where he's like, oh, there's so many people who don't like me that are champions if they come in. I'm like, guess what? It's what you said, Dan. If he doesn't win this season, he's going to be hard pressed to win moving forward because those people aren't suddenly going to like him now.
Like, no, he's done himself no favors this season of currying favor, especially now it'd be hard to do something to curry favor with the vets because they're not here. But you take out the season, he's rubbed so many people the wrong way. And even some of the people who he necessarily didn't rub the wrong way out there while they were there, I think when they go back and watch it, they're going to be like, Jay, like, WTF. And I think outside of Montchal and maybe one or two of the other girls, who does he really have moving forward that if you come back, he can come back in a season and be like, Jay's in a good position. He's done nothing in this is his fourth season that I believe it's third.
Total
that
Madness. He did Total
Double
Madness,
Agents.
Double Agents, Ride or Dies. This is his fourth.
It's his fourth. So he's done nothing in his 4 seasons outside of the person that came in with his Ride or Die and Asaf, who nobody wants to see back anyway, that really are going to come back and say, I'll go to bat for Jay because he's got me.
It's Diet Team Young Buck. The issue is Team Young Buck at this point all had made finals.
I was going to say Corey made like the first 3, I believe his first 3 seasons. It was at least
Corey's
the first
made
2.
a bulk load of finals.
He's made a lot of
seasons
finals.
Hunter has made it to at least the one. I think a second one.
He was
Nelson
he made it to World of Worlds, the first one.
Nelson has been to a few finals as well. Like they have the track record of at least being able to adjust the game as they're going on, adjust how they played the game with the vets instead of being complete adversaries of them, and like figuring out how to toe that line to get to the end. Like this season's bizarre because you don't really have that, and there's no incentives, which we'll get to when we get to the daily. But going back to the show, because we're 11 minutes in, Jay would have been screwed, his words, if Michelle had left. His game would have been completely undone, which is rule number 1 of like, you aren't actually in as much control in the game as you are if one person going home completely destroys your house of cards. So seems like your power's pretty flimsy. He knows he's going to piss Nerys off because he is going after her boys and Kyland and Horacio, but he would never sabotage her game. But by doing that, you are sabotaging her game. So whatever. Then we hear Michelle saying she's like realizing that she needs to keep playing for herself. That elimination helped fire up that I need to play for me, not play for all these other people. And then you have Asaf, who I wish would look into the mirror as he said these words, because these words are correct. They also include him. Everyone thinks they need Michelle, but Michelle doesn't need them.
Asaf is he's something. I don't know if you saw. So if you were following social media, you know that they've filmed the reunion this week.
Well, okay, yes,
I stayed away from the spoilers, but one of it was their outfits. And all I'm saying with the Asaf's outfit, all that you needed to do was throw on a pair of suspenders, which we know he has. And I'm just going to say, he doesn't look like a Geppetto. He looks like a Pinocchio.
Oh, boy. I don't know. I heard some people making comments that he looked like he was going to be on the cover of like a romance novel. I'm like, yeah, but he ain't the love interest.
No, he's the douchebag that you're rooting against.
Exactly. Those were almost my exact words. No, but yeah, I did see all of that. By the way, Corey was the best dressed of those 4. And that was with the sunset tuxedo. So, good on you, Corey. Good on you for beating those other 3. Anyway, so we then have Colleen talking about how Jay and Michelle are the leaders and that all the other people, including herself, are soldiers doing all the work, but not getting any of the benefit. And that gets to a conversation between her and Raven, both saying that they need to keep winning or they're the ones who going to keep getting thrown in because they're the only 2 people that will get voted in either by the winning team or by the house vote. And Raven's saying like, we have these other people like now, like we have Kyland, we have Horacio, we have Nerys, we have Zara. I'm pretty sure Colleen mentions Emmanuel, which also just is like, why at this point? Anyway, but she's still hesitant to trust Colleen. And, it proves true later on. Like, even if you don't win the vote, like, your vote still shows where you stand. Like, Nerys burning her vote, she was in a conflict of interest. Colleen threw her vote at Kyland because she was afraid of being on the losing end of numbers, saying that hopefully this protects me. But the issue is, it's never going to protect you.
So when we get to the vote, Kyland did throw out a few tweets that explain that a little bit more.
Kyland said that they knew they were losing the vote. Nerys said that she couldn't vote for either of them. He respects that because Kyland's never going to force someone else to do something that's not in their best interest.
I don't want to jump ahead to the vote and so just the one comment, but it also just shows kind of the character of the people when we're talking about Kyland and Horacio, that if it had switched and they, it was, and they didn't go to bat for Jay, the roles were reversed, Jay would have thrown an absolute bitch fit, just complaining, like, you don't have my back, and just lost his mind. Where both Kyland and Horacio, they're obviously super close with Nerys, both telling her, don't risk your own game. Like, don't do it. I know you want to protect me, but don't screw over yourself in order to do that.
Exactly. And that's why, like, you have the Jay confession be like, oh, Kyland's like now realizing all of a sudden, like, no, Kyland knew he was losing this vote, but he wanted to make a point.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it wasn't just him on an island against them. There's other people that are, like, seeing the light, so to speak, against Jay and Michelle's tangent or coalition. So it is what it is. So we have that conversation. Then we have a conversation. We rehash the Olivia's upset with Horacio because Horacio doesn't talk and she constantly tries to go to bat for him. And they reuse the same confessional from last week of the maybe I just won't play with Horacio at all, with the very awkward pause there as if there was supposed to be another question right after. Just an editing thing. I'm glad that this is semi-resolved by the end of this episode, but like I knew leaving this, I don't really feel like Horacio is going to have ill will with Olivia. We won't know because he's going to be on this other show for 9 more months or whatever at this point.
June 2026. He'll finally be off of it.
Yeah, he'll be ready for the challenge season 52, and that one will be on Paramount Plus or Max, depending on what all these rumors are with all these subscriptions trying to own each other, or streaming services owning each other, whatever. But we have that as another conflict of issue here, which is only highlighted really because of what the daily result's going to be. We then have Nerys and Horacio. Nerys is like, once again, as we were talking about, like trying to have Horacio's back, telling him like, you need to talk to more people. Like, there's people that are being told by others that you can't be trusted. You can't have their back because you don't talk to them. And Horacio's pretty much like, yeah, I don't want to. Like, they're against me. Like, there's no point in me even pretending to have a conversation with these people because they're siding with Jay and Jay doesn't want me around.
Yeah, and you can just, like, Horacio is just more of an introvert. Like, I'm sure, he definitely loves the competitive aspect of it, but this entire social game, like, it's not for him, which there's nothing wrong with that. You can make criticisms about the TV value that brings. But if that's not him trying to go out there and have these conversations that he's not comfortable with, it probably only is going to hurt him more because he's not going to come off well in those, because he's going to be an anxious ball of anxiety while doing it.
Yeah. But it's just fascinating. You have these people like him and James are like, yeah, I'm not here to politic. Like, I'm not really here to do it. James is worse because he's just like admittedly saying like, oh no, I'm just going to do whatever Mariah tells me to do. We'll get there. So we have those conversations as well. And then we get more from Kyland, and they're giving Kyland the hero edit. Like, he's disheartened because of like what he lives with, like what with him being on the spectrum and all that. It's like the environment is very disheartening for him because that's his biggest issue. Like, these big situations are hard for him to thrive socially, whereas he's better in more like intimate settings or closer circles. And realizing that the people that he was coming in with that he thought were friends of his don't really have his back. So it's a hard place to be in. And that's where we leave off heading into the daily. And the daily, quite frankly, was ass this week. Yeah.
Especially when people couldn't tell the difference between M's and W's.
Allegedly, but also not allegedly. So it was getting tanked in teams of 4 that were selected randomly by everyone just standing where they were told to stand. Your 3 of you will go into a tanker that's filled with liquid and tiles, and one person's on the top. And as that truck is hauling ass and zigzagging around the runway, that person's going to get the tiles from the other 3 people to spell out the phrase, the 2-word phrase, challenge champion. Because we all know that phrase.
Well, with some of these people, if you didn't tell them what the phrase was, they would have been on that truck for quite a while.
Well, no. I'm just saying you could have just said you're spelling challenge champion. Like, phrases are incorrectly being used here.
Oh, okay. No. I get what you're saying. My bad.
Like, they were like, oh, the phrase challenge champion. Like, when it's Survivor, it's like, oh, here's a Survivor phrase. It's always like 4 words at least, like 4 to 5 words. Like, you are not going home tonight. Your torch is getting snuffed. Like, you have one immediate. Like, it's not challenge champion. It's not even a complete thought. It's just it's a noun.
I'm surprised it was even challenge champion and not big moves, because the amount of times that we heard this, I thought I was watching Survivor. And
you know what? Let's get to that, because my next note here was while the teams were competing after I wrote down the team. So here, teams are Kyland, Zara, Mariah, and Emmanuel as one team. Team 2 is Michelle, Asaf, Colleen, and Horacio. Team 3 is James, Nerese, Raven, and Jay. And Team 4 is Corey, Olivia, Ed, and Berna. Kyland's like, in order for us to potentially be safe from the initial vote, we just have to make sure that Corey, Olivia, Ed, and Berna don't win. They do win. But in the process of them winning and other teams throwing so that Horacio couldn't win, here are my 2 issues. One is the challenge needs to go back to dailies mattering, in the sense of, if you come in last, you are the ones vulnerable. Like, you are the ones vulnerable for nomination if you are last. And then the winning team can pick whoever, or the winning team can pick only from the last place team, whatever. Something along those lines. That should be how it is, because when there are no punishments for doing poorly in the daily, this is what gets to happen. You get the vacation lines getting the steamroll. You get the bet alliances to steamroll. You get this conglomeration Fantastic Four bullshit to just have control. Because as long as there's a even divide amongst the people on the bottom, you can throw. And you can ensure that they don't win. So Team 4 wins, but it's like, okay.
No, it makes it so hard for the people that don't have power to regain the power. And it makes it even harder this season, where they're going against champs and you can go 17 episodes without someone getting eliminated. Like, it's almost, if you didn't come in with that big alliance, you stood no chance, because if you have no kind of dictation over how the game can go, you can't really shake it up. Because so for me, it goes back to, I'm thinking Fresh Meat 2. Wes and Evelyn were controlling that entire game, but it was Kenny and Laurel kept winning. They couldn't get rid of them. And because they kept winning, they got to throw in someone from the other side in. And sure, the house vote got to, pick who was going against them. But if they were able to keep knocking off that numbers like happened, that Kenny and Laurel side was able to regain the balance of power that way. With this, there is no way that this underdog conglomerate has the ability to regain power. It's just impossible.
It's very unlikely, because even if they were to win, one of them would still end up being the house vote, unless they were all on the same team. The other issue we have is people using incorrectly big move and power move when they're the people in the majority alliance. Like, I get it in the sense of they are saying it's a power move, big move, because they're voting in someone vocally, and by winning the daily, they're like saying that name, and it's someone that they believe would beat most of them in a final. I get that part. It's not a power or big move in terms of dynamics of the game, because a power or big move is something that completely shifts the board, changes the playing field. It's a move that you do that takes someone out, that completely restructures the playing board, potentially in your favor.
Mm-hmm. You're absolutely right. And I know I generally stay off of responding stuff on social media, but I saw Corey had put something out there. And that's simply what I said. I was like, I think the biggest problem that people are having is you're misusing the word big move, because voting Horacio, what? If he's not last in the House, he's second to last under Kyland. That isn't shaking anything up. So it's not a big move. I'll give it to him as a smart move because he's trying to eliminate a potential final threat, but it's definitely not a big move. And by Corey liking my tweet, I'm just assuming that he agrees with me as well. So it's all right, Corey. You just used the wrong phrasing there. We got it under control now.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, so Team 4 wins. And they go to discuss, and Olivia's like, even if I'm like feeling a type of way about Horacio, like I wouldn't have mattered. Like I did not have a voice here. Berna, Ed, and Corey immediately were just like, no, we're throwing in Horacio. He's the only person that all of us guys are afraid to go against in the final. So they say the name, Olivia apologizes, and then Kyland just goes, man, y'all are scared bitches. And then Corey's like, no, I just did the bravest thing in this season. And then Asaf, had to run his mouth and go, no, he did the bravest thing ever.
Leave it to Asaf, just make it worse. And I am really happy. Once again, I'm happy that Kyland's here, because this is where you see Horacio lacking. I have no doubt that Horacio may be the nicest person and most genuine person on this cast. Not saying that he is, but if they pulled it and said that he was, I wouldn't be surprised whatsoever. But for the challenge, we needed some type of response from him. Not, well, it was my fault that we lost, so I take it as an honor to send me down there. Like, Horacio, I do like you, but we need a little bit more fire from you, pal. And at least Kyland was able to provide that.
Yeah. I love Kyland he's going to get in a fight with somebody every single round that he gets voted in for. Someone that he likes is getting voted in. So I love that. And also, do you remember early this season when Asaf was like, nobody knows about the secret duo of me and Jay and how like we're basically family?
Mm-hmm.
And then while Team 3 was going, you keep hearing him going, rooting for Uncle Jay.
Yep, I did notice that.
He's doing such a good job. Hiding that relationship.
No one will ever know.
No one will ever know that Asaf is working with the U.S. and also that Jay is basically his son's uncle. Or child. I don't know if it's a son or daughter, really.
It
is a baby.
Oh, Asaf. There's... Next.
Yes, next. Okay, so... yeah, Horacio pick was very easy. Kyland calls Corey scared. Kyland basically calls everybody scared. So then we get back to the house, and really people are finding out that it's going to be... everyone's like, it's Kyland. Kyland's the vote. But then Mariah comes in and says it could be Jay. Kyland thinks that... and I'm blurring lines here between this and the club and all that, that Jay could be the name too. And then we get this confessional from Jay saying that, Michelle doesn't want to do any moves. And he's bored by that. And now he wants to play the game.
So full of shit.
So, Michelle has been targeting people that are outside the alliance.
Just like Jay.
And she would have been picking Kyland. Just like Jay.
Yep.
Like, the only other option would have been James.
And no one's at this point. You'd rather get out Kyland and Horacio, who were more known threats, especially in a final, than James is.
Right. And that's the thing. That's the thing that's not being said since episode 3. Is... like, Nerys is upset that why isn't James being looked at? Why aren't other people being looked at instead of Horacio and Kyland? And she's sort of blinded by the friendship she has with Kyland and the relationship she now has with Horacio, because this is an individual win. Like, Horacio even says, only one person wins this game, and I'm sorry, Nerys, you aren't beating Horacio in a final. she could beat other people for sure. I'm someone who's always been high on Nerys, and whatever daily show are just dailies, because as long as you have good running condition, you have a chance to win. And if she did the training, we haven't seen a lot of components yet until next week that really require endurance. So we'll have to see there. But this is really what all of the next 30 minutes of the episode is this overlapping people being upset over Horacio and Kyland being thrown in, people not wanting to vote certain ways. What are the lines truly being shown? So we get to the
I was you're saying with the club, what I don't understand is, and you hit on it earlier in this podcast, of Jay saying to Nerys, being like, hey, I'm going to go after your guys, but I'm not targeting you, so I have your best interest, and I'm not hurting your game, I'm just taking away one of your numbers.
You're number one.
It makes no sense, and it's so hypocritical, because had she went up to Jay, or after the fact, like, Jay, I'm going to target Michelle and I'm going to take her out here, but don't worry, it has no impact on you and me, and we're still good, and I'm still here for you. I don't think Jay would just be like, oh, okay, yeah, no, that makes perfect sense.
Oh, yeah, no, but this is always hypocritical of these shows. And even outside these shows, any type of game like this where that blurred line comes in, people are going to take offense to it. It's just that Nerys isn't a fake person. So you're going to get her coming at you. So let's get to the club. So we talked about the Colleen thing. Colleen has the conversation with Jay of what do I need to do to see where I stand with you? Am I just always going to be the bottom person? And Jay pretty much talks around and then just gets very silent and basically is proving to her that no, you will always be on the bottom, because it doesn't matter what I think.
Yeah, no, we'll always vote for Raven. What if Raven's safe?
Yeah, Colin's like, what if Raven's safe? What do you want me to say? And right then and there, Colleen has to realize it doesn't matter if you hide with the numbers anymore. There isn't no, oh, I'm going to reintegrate and I'll potentially jump other people. Who knows what happens? Maybe it works out. But realistically, you voting in the minority doesn't change anything from where you stood before.
No, it doesn't change anything. And if you're just looking on statistics and how the season is playing out, on the next, female day, there is a solid chance that either Zara or Raven are going to be one of the women that's safe, just because they've been on part of the winning team almost every single week. So you're going to be that next up. That, Colleen, congrats, you're not on the bottom, but you're third to the bottom. And because of that, because one of them's going to be safe, you're going to be in jeopardy of going into almost every elimination for the rest of the season.
Right. Until we see something change in the elimination format, since, as we like to know, there are still 16 people, 13 episodes in. Man, I miss you know what? I miss the CBS challenge where we would be at the final right now.
13 was the final. This would be the last episode.
Yeah, this would be the last episode. We would get an off season in a normal season.
Don't believe in that shit, apparently.
No. Not on MTV. Not on MTV when their only other option is let's throw another episode of Ridiculous on for 2 hours.
Every once in a while, they'll throw on Catfish.
And they had the Jersey Shore Marathon.
So many good options.
Yeah, so many. So 3 of them. Yes. So now is another bad spot for Jay. So Nerys is realizing, she feels she's a pawn, because essentially she's not getting her way of I just have these 2 people outside of our giant conglomeration of a group, and you guys are targeting them when James is on the table. Because I don't know who she's asking to be put in. If it's it should have been James and James, because the other people I feel she would want to say are Corey and Ed potentially,
or Emmanuel,
or Emmanuel, but realistically it wasn't going to happen. So I can understand being upset over the situation. And honestly, I'm not even going to go that step where oh, she went all out of line, because she really didn't. because we
Mm-mm.
first have um Jay gaslighting Olivia,
Oh, it's bad.
and it was heavy-handed.
Oh yeah.
Like a lot of like hand slapping against the table, saying like Horatio doesn't have your back, he doesn't care for you, he never cared about you. Like really like forceful. That try to like make the point that like Horacio's not your friend. Like don't not even like separate the game. He's not your friend. I'm your
It's
friend. I'm the one that protects you.
it's so brutal, and what makes the gaslighting that much worse is when Nerys comes over and the one comment of just being like, "Well, if you're gonna yell, I'm gonna walk away." It's just like
And
that is
let's be
so
clear.
small dick energy all over the place.
Also, let's be very clear here because that was my next point. Nerys joins, and obviously she's bucking up and protecting Horacio and saying like he's won how many times? Like whenever he has won, y'all were never up for discussion. And like Jay does get the valid point, like, well, he was never in the majority of those votes, and we weren't going to go in anyway, so it doesn't mean shit. And she's like, no, it does mean shit because he wasn't going to consider y'all. Like the game changed when you guys looked at him. And she's talking at a calm level. Like she's not shouting. She's not even raising her voice. It's like similar to what Amanda does when she's like making a point at the club. Like she's not yelling, but like she's like her points are points.
Mm-hmm.
But she ain't raising her voice. And then once it's like I hate the look of Jake then going like, don't I'm not gonna get in a yelling match with you. And he keeps saying that. And I'm like, buddy, you can't be saying that.
Especially when he was essentially just yelling at Olivia to prove his point. He said like smacking the table and going over the top is it's bad. It's just bad.
But especially when you have Olivia in confessional who's like all, at the point of them making confessionals, like she knows she has to like retrace her steps of what was going on during that time. But she's like you aren't making me feel good with how you're talking right now. Like you are doing the opposite of that. And
yeah, he's completely, as you mentioned, gaslighting Olivia and tearing her down and then antagonizing Nerys. Like that's a horrible look and a horrible alliance member.
Right, and then obviously Michelle, like we only see a snippet of Michelle coming in, like defending Jay there, because obviously she will defend Jay there. But I love that we then see Horatio like seeing the situation comes in and pulls Olivia away from this contention.
Like a friend would do,
like
seeing that your friend is uncomfortable.
And he also like apologizes for not talking as much. Like he's like, I am introverted. I do not like really talk that much, but like you shouldn't trust these people. Like I wasn't against them. I wasn't saying their names. I would never say your name. I want to make that very clear. I would never say your name, and I always do what I think would be best for you and protect you whenever I'm able to. But these people, I thought I was good with them, and look what they're doing to me. So you shouldn't really trust these people that you're working with. And Olivia has to do like the half stance of like, is this a little too late or whatever? But like, he did what you asked, and that was pull you aside and talk to you. And maybe that will help bloom things as things go further into the season.
Hopefully.
Since we're at the halfway point.
Oh, don't say that.
We're not at the pointy end of the game, Dan. Not by a long shot.
No, we're not even in phase 3.
No, so we have all that. Then it's the next day. Kyland's like asking Colleen again, like, did that conversation with Jay, is it forgive and forget? Are you still good? And at that point, she's saying she's still good. But obviously, somewhere between then and the nomination, she tells Kyland she's voting him. Then you have Zara helping as well and going to James and being like, look, like, do you actually want to help shake up the game? Like, do you want to do something that will help you? Because voting Jay in, we can potentially have the numbers if you are with us. And we could send him in. And that will help you. That will help Mariah. Like, that will help other people have a chance in this game. And James is essentially just like, well, I'll just do whatever my woman Mariah tells me to do. And all Zara asks is, please don't tell anyone. Next scene, Mariah comes in. Is like, James just told me that everyone's that Kyland's trying to make you to vote.
It's bad. And
But that's also bad on Mariah because, like, I understand it. It's like at this point, Mariah's still in that ride or die alliance, and Michelle is one of her higher numbers. So she's playing this game of like, well, if I keep working with Michelle, Michelle will help me protect James. So she thinks by doing this stuff and like, oh, James gave me the information to give you guys will help James in the future. I'm like, that just doesn't work. The math doesn't math because say Kyland goes, say Horacio goes this week, and then the next guy elimination comes up and we're still in a similar format, even in Conquest. The two names will be said are Horacio and James.
Mariah is, and it's not quite the same, but it's similar to Horacio. It's just like she keeps getting pushed, and it's just like, Mariah, like, give us something, give us some type of reaction, give us some type of fight back, and it's just nothing. And it's all right.
I think I think it's different. I think Mariah is playing a really good social game that's just not being shown because it's not a main character social game.
I don't think she's coming back. Like, I don't think she's done enough to this point to come back. And you can make arguments for a lot of people, but
I think you can make an argument for her, but more so because of the storyline of it all. Because you're going to have a season where it's Bananas, her, and James, even if she's not with James anymore.
I guess so. No, that's right. It's disappointing because you could see
we
were high on her. You could see there was some potential there, and she even started off the season somewhat strong, but
I mean, when you have less people calling you out as they're coming in for elimination from the champ side to call out you and James and how Bananas feels about it, then like you don't really get to have as much storyline. I think she's maybe somewhat thankful that the last 2 episodes haven't been about her.
Well, unless Brad pulled chaos, because in Brad's interview he said that he spoke to Bananas prior.
Oh yeah, and he would have picked James.
Would pick James. Yep.
And you know what? He may have won. He may have won against James.
I have more about Brad when we get there.
Well, I feel bad for Brad.
Oh, when we get there, I'm gonna pump him up. I'm not tearing him down.
Okay, good. So we had that exposure, and now Jade's just like is like unhinged, and he's like, "Oh yeah, time to play the game. It's elimination tonight." And he pulls and has a conversation with Kyland, Horacio, Zara, Raven. Manuel's there for whatever reason, and he's like accusing them of targeting him and like trying to intimidate them almost and like mob boss them. And Kyland just like
intimidating way possible.
Yeah, and Kyland immediately just goes like, "Hey, look, we never said your name until you put both of us in. So what are we gonna do about that? Like, you're not going to intimidate Kyland. That's not how Kyland works."
Jay shouldn't intimidate anybody.
Oh yeah, no. This is where I'm like really into like, Jay, remember what your position was? Like, you're looking at it, and now look how he's handling it.
And he goes unhinged like the Joker, just laughing and like walking around and being like,
"It doesn't bother me. I'm fine.
No, this is why I came here. You know, this is what I live for." And it's just like, I don't know what image you're trying to portray yourself, but I guarantee you, whatever that image is in your head, you're doing the complete opposite.
He thinks he's Bananas. Let's be real.
It's probably no.
This is what he thought this season would do. It would show him puppet like being the puppeteer. Actually, not like how Asaf says it. Like, he's the mastermind. He's the one controlling the alliance. Everything revolves around him. He gets the end. He wins because he played this master political social game, which really was just a lot of pre-gaming with a lot of friends coming in that would never betray him because of their friendship, not because of the game itself. Mm-hmm. But ignoring that point, he thought this would be like his Bananas moment. Like, he finally gets his win after a few seasons of like not like amazing runs, and then gets that win. And then that's the start of this new power player. It's short-minded, but thinking that it's a long-term mindset.
Yeah, I can't be mad about it because it happens every season where, sure, the new people that generally come in, take the season out of it. Most seasons where there's a bunch of vets in there, the new people come in and they're on the bottom. They cry. Everyone's playing a scared game. Oh, you're just scared of me. You don't want to see me in the final, yada, yada, yada. And then when you get that power, you do the exact same thing. So I can't be mad about Jay for that because that's what everyone does. The only person that I'd say gets somewhat of a pass would be not a pass, but someone who hasn't done it is someone like a Kara or a Wes. Sure, there's been examples where both of them have done it, but we've seen them be established vets and go against the grain. But outside of that, I mean, that's the exception, not the rule. So I can't be that mad about Jay because it's what everyone else does. But this is just a horrible look.
I think that's the issue. It's like some people can wear being the villain well, and he can't. He can't. He's not someone like he is not a reality TV character that is meant to have power.
No.
He's supposed to be in the Kyland position, the underdog contingent that like is trying to rise above the odds. That's his character. This isn't him.
No, Jay's best case scenario is he comes back and he keeps getting thrown in and he wins a couple of eliminations to keep getting him a few more seasons so people will start rooting for him again. Because if this is especially, I'd imagine he isn't going to come back for 40. We don't know what 40 is going to be yet. There isn't a cast yet. There's just speculation out there. I can't imagine he's going to be on there. So being a break is probably good for him because he'd be screwed when he comes back. I still think he is, but on his next season, if he gives us what he's giving this season, he's done. We never need to see him back
especially
again.
because like his biggest issue and the reason why he's succeeding in this season was he wasn't going to fit with the typical veterans that come onto the show.
Mm-hmm.
And, maybe part of that was allegedly because of him and Bananas dating the same girl at one point and whatever. But,
he's also...
he hasn't done anything to try to not ingratiate. Like, I'm not asking you to kiss ass. But, like, you have to play the game. And if this is the game that you want to play, you're not playing it successfully for more than just this season. Because, you can't have your cake and eat it too. You can't go for this win, be the political mastermind, then come to the next season and be good with everybody.
Even sure, everything that happens with Bananas, it's going to make it a more uphill climb for him to make. But I felt like in his short run in Double Agents, he was kind of starting to get in a little bit better. And then what does he do the first time he had power with Teresa?
He targeted
Cam and burned it and burned all the vets in there. So it's just like you can't blame it solely on his position with Bananas. It's every time he's had a chance to ingratiate himself with the vets or not just make friends, he's completely screwed it up. It's only on him.
And I still give his elimination with CT an asterisk because that was an out-of-shape CT. Like a CT that should not have been playing this season.
Yeah, like it wasn't all that great. And so, sure, he started off with those 2 elimination wins against Asaf and then CT. And so he had a good start. But really, depending upon the elimination, he probably not going to be the favorite in any elimination he goes into if it isn't climbing related.
Right, like he would have won this one.
Yeah, agreed.
Most
depending upon who it was against.
Well, most people would have beaten Brad here with how Brad was moving. I'm not dissing Brad, but Brad said it himself that he wasn't in the shape or the ready shape, and that's because he was an alternate, folks. Like, I get it. You see the muscles. Muscles doesn't mean that you're ready to go. There's challenge shape, and he was not in challenge shape for it. Anyway, this gets us... we get a little brief thing of Michelle saying, like, noting what we are saying about Jay. And now Michelle comes in and she cleans it all up in the background. And you know who else does a good job of cleaning it up for him is Corey.
Corey does. Corey's come a long way this season.
Corey is a villain, but at least he embraces being a villain. And he's like, no, Colleen, you person on the bottom, you can still come with me. You like me. You like Berna here, who like makes all of her decisions just based off who she likes. Just don't go sleeping with Emmanuel anymore. Emmanuel has a girlfriend.
Yeah, and
you should know
fault.
better. It's your fault. It's your fault and it's Raven's fault. But still work with me. But that gets us to the nominations, and we see. I am ignoring the Kyland calling Jay aggro was to his face was priceless.
That was really good.
Like unintentional riling someone up of being like, dude, I don't know why you're so aggro right now, and that just like blows the hat off of Jay's head. Anyway, nominations. Raven, Kyland, Horacio, and Kyland make their stance, and they all vote Jay. Then comes to Nerys, who, going into the nomination, was very torn with Jay because I either vote for you and I'm fake, or I vote for Kyland and I'm fake. And if I burn my vote, Kyland goes in. But she ultimately decides to burn her vote on Emmanuel because she said that she would not vote for either of them, and she was going to keep her word there. So Kyland...
I was going to say also... No, go ahead. Finish it up. This
and then I was going to say, and Colleen then decides because the numbers are no longer there, she's going to vote Kyland. And then everyone else votes Kyland. And Kyland's the vote.
And according to Kyland, it was Colleen had informed him prior to that deliberation of which way she was voting. So it made no sense for Nerys to actually vote for Jay because it wouldn't have changed anything. So as much as, they wanted to make the comments and laugh being like, oh, your own girl didn't have your back or whatever, they knew about this ahead of time. This isn't any type of shot at Nerys. And as we talked about earlier, Horacio and Kyland both saying, hey, don't blow up your game for us.
Right. And Nerys is a real one. End of the day. And she doesn't want to go back on what she has promised. Mm-hmm. She promised to keep Jay, Michelle, and Asaf safe. She promised to keep Horacio and Kyland safe. If they're the options, she isn't going to vote for either of them. So that gets us over to the arena. And Brad the Beard comes out. 12 seasons, 5 finals, 1 cutthroat, some appearances on All-Stars as well, or some good showings on All-Stars as well. And Kyland is selected because for whatever reason they told Brad to not pick the middle.
So the show didn't do a good job of pumping up Brad. You know what? I'm going to pump up Brad. I'm not going to excuse his elimination. We know there were some, even had he known, there's a chance Kyland beats him. It's just a chance. Brad's 43. He's older. He's starting to lose a step. But for newer challenge fans that aren't familiar with Brad and being like, what's he doing here? I'm going to stop you because you take out All-Stars. We saw him twice in the 30s, which like he was fine. But let's not diminish the legend that Brad is, because in those teens, Brad was an animal. He did win season 20 Cutthroat, which is probably only his 3rd most impressive season.
Yeah, I would say the duel.
I was going to say in the duel, he took out Big Easy on a pole wrestle where Big Easy's strategy was, I'm just going to lay on it. And sure, we did have a little bit of weird stuff with that CT elimination, but technically he won.
Carabiner.
You go to the final and he loses by less than 2 minutes. How do we start the final off? We started off by a PK shoot between him and Wes of Brad, who's never played soccer, versus Wes, who has. So, of course, Wes won. Brad made up time that had there not been that equalizer or, advantage right in the beginning, he would have beat Wes, which that was peak Wes when Wes was at his most dominant form physically in the challenge.
You could also argue a very similar story of All Stars 3 with him coming in second to Wes there as well.
Yeah. And then the other thing was the duel. The duel 2. In the duel 2, he ran that entire game. Now he did it with Landon, Evan, and Mark Long, but he's the only person that knocked out Challenge Reddit, Challenge Twitter's Messiah, Landon. The only person that's ever beat Landon in an elimination. And then he went on and he lost to Evan by 1 second. And if you know some of the stuff behind the scenes, there was kind of a conspiracy to let Evan get the win because Evan's, from being from Canada, wasn't taxed as much money, and they all split the prize pot. So there's a different universe that is very likely that Brad is coming into this as a 3-time challenge champ.
Oh, for sure.
But he's 43 and he's older now.
Yeah, but also this elimination was made for Bananas.
Yep.
Bananas, endurance, all that stuff, like it's right up his alley. This was meant to be him. And ideally, I think at that point they were like, Bananas comes in, he pulls chaos, he picks James and takes James out here because James would gas out. And then there was a rumor, I don't even know if it was a rumor or if it's more confirmed now, that Derek K was potentially going to be the person instead of Brad, but he didn't. For whatever stuff you needed to clear in order to get there, he didn't have done or wouldn't be able to get done in time. And Brad was, I guess, available because of All Stars 3 and the timelines for those. So he was able to come in. So there was other people that were in line to come in prior to Brad. So, you know, props to Brad for coming in like basically last second to do an elimination for the show that he loves.
And I know he even mentioned afterwards, he said, you know, he was excited, but he got there, you know, he finding all this stuff out last second. He said he didn't sleep on the plane. He barely slept the night before, which makes a little bit more sense with how rough he was looking and how rough his voice sounded. But it was just a tough position for him. And side note, I think one of my favorite tweets I saw was one from Kieran just being like, am I the only one that's going to get a vet in a physical elimination? Or like,
hey, Big T did.
It's been a while.
Arguably, Big T was the only one in a legitimate physical elimination. Yeah. Kieran and Kyland both had the endurance ones and like carnival-ish with the one against Darrell. Hey, at least it wasn't a puzzle. But can we also just mention that they're like the way that they were able to prove that Kyland was so smart. So okay, so the elimination is what's going down. You have to go down 5 stories and slide the planks to create space for you to get to the bottom and pull 10 like Bosu balls up and put them down 10-1. They're numbered. You have to have them in order. Essentially, if you don't do it in order, you're fucked. So we now learned that Kyland is a genius because instead of doing 1 plank at a time, guess what? He did 2.
No way. Do you think anyone's thought of that before?
What would they have said if he did 3?
Ed might have lost his fucking mind.
He's like, he's gonna gas out his hand by doing too many at a time.
Well, I just love the other thing. It was like, I don't know how much pre-workout he took. It's just like I get it that this is endurance.
He's like 30.
And he's in great shape.
Yeah.
And you're saying this on like his 4th run, being like, do you think he'd gas out that? Like, he's not James. He's not going to gas out that quick.
Yeah, right. And like, even if he did gas out, like, I'm sorry, Brad, but you got mollywopped.
Oh, he got demolished.
You got lapped multiple times. It was like, I think someone said like from a screen grab or whatever, it was 10-6.
Yep, that's what I saw.
And like, really, Brad had a slow start and like had a couple of weird things happen, like his shoe popping off and whatever. But he was not challenge ready ultimately, and he would tell you that himself. So Kyland wins, and he continues to prove to people why they're going to keep targeting him is he is actually a threat. And, we want a challenger to take it, a champion to take him out before we have to be the ones to try to take him out, because if he's being Darrell and he's beating Brad even out of shape, like Brad out of shape in some of these eliminations still kick half these people's asses. So, like,
especially had it been more physical, like this was not the elimination for Brad.
So,
but to be fair, you could say that about half the champs eliminations, that this was not the elimination for him.
So Kyland wins his third win of the season. Him and Raven have won like half of the episodes eliminations for this season.
All 42 of them.
All 42 of them. But next week, we have the mini final daily, and CT comes back. And as I've been predicting for so very long, Dan and I have been arguing, will it be Asaf or will it be Jay? And I am still of the mindset he pulls Chaos and he pulls Asaf down, because the veterans have made it known pretty much that it was like, unless it was James being pulled down, a lot of them also were saying they would pull Asaf down. And I think partially it's because they don't know him.
And I've never said that you're wrong. I've just more stated that I want to see him call Jay. And especially after this episode, I really want to see him call Jay. Ugh. Not saying that that's what'll happen. And who knows? We don't know exactly who's going to be winning this daily, who's going to be up for elimination, who's safe and all that stuff. But that's just keeping my fingers crossed for that.
Well, and we don't know how they're being paired up or if it's individual and whatever. But depending on, yeah, I was going to say, like, Jay has one of the better shots of winning a final style daily.
In endurance, yep.
Like, I know he was gifted a win in a similar style last season on Ride or Dies. However, he's someone who will do well in this type of format. Horacio would do well. I think Kyland would also do well. Like, there's multiple guys that I think could do well depending on how it's set up. I'm very curious to see from the women's side, especially because I think it's going to be apparent it's a guy's day again. Who shows up and who shows out that, like, oh no, I can win shit. Like, does Raven show that, oh yeah, you don't want to run against me in a final? Does, like, Mariah have a good showing? Does Michelle have a good, like,
Zara?
Olivia, yeah, Zara. Zara's also someone who could do very well. She was a runner-up on UK, so she made the final and almost won that. So, very interested to see what happens there, but that does wrap up this episode. Dan, do you have any other final comments?
Not on this episode, I don't think so. I just wanted to say to all you guys listening, guys and gals, we appreciate you. I was looking at some of the numbers on views, not on YouTube, but also our download views, and they have been way up the past few weeks, especially on the downloads. So for those of you listening, however that you do, we greatly appreciate that. It means a lot. Alex and I, we're just two guys sitting here talking about a show that we love, and we're really happy that everyone seems to be enjoying it. As far as other stuff coming up, I do know tonight, it is Friday, January 12th. The first 3 episodes of The Traitors are dropping. And I believe next Monday, you'll be able to see Johnny, Rachel Riley, and maybe Jen Hoffman doing coverage of first week of The Traitors. As always, the best way to support the podcast is to become a patron at realitypatron.com. Join us for a month, any tier, $5, $10, whatever you feel in your heart. We appreciate it. It gets you access to the secret Facebook group, the Q&A, where you get all of Johnny and Matt's best stories. Try it for a month. It helps us out. If you don't like it, let us know. Johnny will refund your money. We don't keep anyone hostage. And I think that's all I have. Is there anything else you have, Alex?
No, that wraps it up. We'll be back next week, probably around the same time, to cover the next halfway point of the challenge until we learn otherwise.
CT episode.
The final episode of phase 2. I'm not even going to say the names of them anymore. But phase 2 of the challenge is coming to an end next week. We get to see CT hopefully eat someone's brain. Hopefully it's Asaf or Jay.
Smash
we'll
his
have
head
to
and
see.
eat it.
But we'll see you all next week. Thank you all.
See y'all.